You're listening to the Player Issue Podcast. Here's your host, Aaron Warwick.
Good evening and welcome to episode 7 of the Player Issue Podcast. I'm a little bit sick this week, so I've had to bring in a special guest who is not so special, because it's actually the original co-host with me, Josh, who's back. How are you, Josh?
I'm good, mate. I'm good.
He's good. He's just as excited as episode 1, although today was a bit more of a special day, so he should be very excited after today. We just finished watching Brisbane tip over Geelong by 1 point.
Miracle on the grass too. It's great.
2.0.
Milestone man kicking the winning goal. Doesn't get any better than that.
Yes, absolutely tremendous game. We've had to take about a 40-minute break just so Josh can calm his heartbeat. And
I had to have a drink.
He's had to have a very stiff apple Smirnoff, which he poured me one, and I'm still going, and that was 40 minutes ago. It's a very stiff drink, I'll give you that much. So thank you very much for coming in, Josh, and welcome back to the show.
No worries.
Everyone enjoyed listening to you, so it's good to have you back.
Equally as tired as last time, so that's good.
It's only 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not even that. So,
I know.
Yeah. So Brisbane Lions going really well at the moment, Josh.
I tell you what, you go into the start of the season, you think, oh yeah, we could possibly make finals, that'd be good. And then you win a few in a row, and then looks like you're going to make finals, and you think, well, it's all right, it's not bad, but if we lose week 1, that's fine, We only won 5 games last year, but now we're sitting top of the ladder with 1 game to play. You sort of just think, I don't know, that whole mindset of, oh, look, we could be competitive in the finals, but next year we could really compete for the grand final, but I think that goes out the window, and you sort of think, it's there, why not just take it now?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I've sort of gone from being very calm on the matter and very very subdued in my thoughts in finals, but now I'm going to say if it's there, let's just take it.
Well, I've watched a number of games with you over the years, as you can imagine. But today, obviously, was the most emotional I've ever seen out of you, and it's round 21.
Yeah.
Round 22, rather.
I think it's just the fact that we haven't really had many wins in a row, let alone going 9 straight now. So, and then to knock off Geelong, who have been sitting pretty up there for the whole season.
Oh, yeah.
So, no, it's a good feeling. It was a very, very... I think I would have been less emotional if they had have just kicked the ball straight. It was just a frustrating game to watch the whole way through. It was just... Marcus Adams got however many contested possessions and marks and all that, but just kick the ball straight. Just kick it straight. Stop kicking it out of bounds on the full.
Yeah, it's amazing how often you see a 1 versus 2 and everyone expects to come into the game and think, oh, this is just going to blow the other games out of the water. It's just going to be free-flowing, amazing football. But it always turns out to be a scrappy, hard nut kind of game.
Low-scoring, scrappy. Well, not really low-scoring, but compared to Brisbane and Geelong are the highest scoring teams in the competition at the moment, so you would have thought would have been goal after goal, but no, it was just I think it was just a scrappy battle.
Yeah,
I think
as a neutral, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and the only reason I think that there was as close as it was because Geelong was just able to get the ball out of the middle a bit easy a couple times, kick a couple consecutive goals. Other than that, it looked like we had the ball pretty much under control for the majority of the game. So
yeah,
no, it was a good game. It's a good game.
Yeah, I think...
Calm down now.
Yeah, I think Brisbane certainly controlled the ball a bit more, but yeah, just the end product was what they were lacking a little bit. But as soon as they got there, and it looked like they overran them a little bit in their last few minutes, which is really good for them coming into the finals.
Yeah.
So they got that extra bit of heart at the end of the games.
No, it's good. It's good to see. Yeah, it's good to see them winning again.
Yeah.
It's not good to see their jumper prices going up, though, and... virtually becoming unattainable by me now, so...
Yes, it's very true. I picked up one myself this week. It was a Clash Cam Rayner, so it actually didn't get released, so I'm really stoked to get a hold of that. Last year it might have been a bit easier, a bit lower to price-wise to get, but I still believe it's still a really good price. So thank you, Kai, for that one. I'm very stoked to get it. Can't wait to add it into the collection. But yes, you do have a fair point there. The prices are definitely skyrocketing.
Yeah, I just... as much as I love them, I'm not one to spend too much, and some of the prices just seem to be going up and up, and it's very rare that I find one that's sort of around the price that I was just sort of willing to pay max now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, this is like the lowest price now, so Just going to have to put a few more pennies away.
Well, you mentioned with Rob in episode 2 that in the shop last year, and possibly even the start of this year, they had the player issue jumpers in store for $150.
Yeah, they've got... I don't know, did I go last year? I did. Yeah, the last couple seasons I've gone over. They've had just one wall. It's got a couple racks there that have just had just player issues. Just heaps of them, usually the ones that have sort of been and gone, so the all for ones, and then there's usually some Anzacs up there. One I'm wearing now was an Anzac I got from my first ever trip to the Gabba, Josh Walker.
2016.
Yes, so usually good price too, $150. Only $30 more than the retail, so...
That's right. And so, yeah, I bring that up purely because I sent the Lions an email during the week, and after what you said being $150, I was like, oh yeah, if I can pick up a nice Lions jumper from this season for $150, I'll be pretty stoked. They came back with a bunch of jumpers, so there was a lot of them. There were the Bulldog jumper, as Josh mentioned previously, which is the Hall of Fame jumper.
Yes.
Yes?
Yep.
And also the 2019 Anzac Day jumpers, which are a great design. However, the prices have gone up, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Because of the level of play, and obviously the demand has gone up, so now they're $199.
Ooh.
So,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it makes sense that supply and demand is there.
Yeah.
And does, I guess, take out the little man sometimes.
Just fundraising for higher wages that some of the boys will be getting next year.
That's a very good point, actually. Great point you make.
A few rookies on the list there that probably, might need a bit of a boost in the salary.
All right, we'll jump off Brisbane now. I think we're all very excited about how Brisbane's prospects are looking, and being a neutral and Fremantle's season pretty much done and dusted now. I'll be jumping on
mate.
I'll be jumping on the Lions.
The Dons tonight. Take them out. Who you got the week after?
We'll have Port Adelaide, but we have to have a lot of things fall our way.
Yeah. Look,
it's not going to happen, I'm afraid.
Port need to lose this week. Next week, Crows are already losing.
Look, I'm very optimistic, I'll give you that.
Doggies need to lose.
Well, this
Hawks
is Freo we're talking about, that never get that sort of luck. Or a team to throw
Saints
out.
already lost, so you're already clear of them. Yeah. You just need to win, and everyone else on top of you needs to lose, and you're all good.
Yeah, I mean, it's that easy, really.
Yeah,
perfect. No,
yep.
Freo all the way. We'll definitely win the premiership this year. No, anyway, so I'll be jumping on the Lions. I'll be jumping on the Lions bandwagon in the finals.
You coming over?
And yes, I have got some money aside. My first trip to the Gabba, as it looks like they'll finish top 4 and should play 2 at home. So yeah, I think Josh just had about an orgasm there.
No, it was just more. At one stage, it looked like they'd come over here and play a game of footy, but it looks like I'm forking out. I think it'd be about $600. We're looking at $600-700.
Yep,
for flights over there.
Yeah, no, that's super exciting. Like I said, I've never been to the Gabba, and
it's always super exciting spending $700.
Well, the atmosphere that I've seen from the Gabba crowd,
it will,
up and about,
it will be good.
So.
And I think I've mentioned before that first ever Lions game I went to was the record lowest ever crowd at the Gabba.
Is there any tarps there, Josh?
There should have been. There really should have been. I think it was about 7,000 or 8,000 people, 7,000 to 9,000 people.
And that was 12 months ago, right? Or just over
no, that was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
2 years ago for actually it was 2016, and we got destroyed by Gold Coast in the Q Clash.
Oof, yeah, okay.
100-point loss. So yeah, it wasn't a good first game to go to, but made up for it earlier in the year, and hopefully this year there'll be a finals game that we get to watch and see the boys come up on top of that, which would be really good.
Yeah, that's a corky turnaround, just a few years to go from such a low point to such a high at the moment on top of the ladder. So yeah, it's a great time to be a Lions fan.
It is.
Right, so I'm just going to mention a few things that I've been told or a message during the week. There was a few pitchforks raised after one of our listeners heard episode 3, as I was talking about the female collectors in the game, and I think wires got a bit crossed or my communication wasn't fantastic, and a few people thought that I mentioned there was only one collector in the country, which I certainly don't think that, and I know for a fact there is quite a number of female collectors out there. I was simply saying that there is only one collector who's actually contacted the show about coming on and sharing their stories with us. So again, if you are a female collector out there, please don't be afraid or shy to contact me or Josh at the page and see if we can get you on for a future episode. We'd actually love to have you and love to hear about your collection without any shadow of a doubt. So I certainly know there's plenty of yous out there. Please don't be shy to share yourself on the page and say good day to all of us. Okay, so that's going to bring us straight into our interview today. It was a cracker of an interview, again over Skype. This one actually went really well, and I think it's going to sound really good for you guys out there. And again, if you're a Victorian football fan, I think you're going to love some of the stories coming up, and the collection that he's going to share with you guys is going to be really exciting to hear, and there's going to be a few laughs in there, I think. So, yeah, I think you're going to enjoy this one. So here is our interview with Dave Cawsey.
Dave, how are you, mate?
Yeah, really good, Aaron. How are you?
Lovely. It's a nice Tuesday evening. Just getting ready to play basketball. So we're doing this just before I have to go to a game, but excited and ready to have a chat.
No worries. No, yeah, your weather over there is a bit better than what we've got. I think we had about 8 or 9 degrees today, so enjoy the warmth over there, mate.
It's definitely not warm, but it's a bit better than 8 or 9. But yeah, no, I've been staying indoors all day. I haven't left the house. I've actually been on the couch sleeping most of it.
Yeah, nice for something.
Yeah, it's good to have a day off every now and then. All right, Dave. For those who don't know you, which team do you support?
Yeah, Melbourne supporter, mate. Dates back actually to the start of the VFL. We've worked it out. My great-great-grandfather barracked for Melbourne back in 1897, and that's passed on to great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and I've punished my son Mitch as well. So he's heavily involved in going to the footy each week with me, which is a great thing. And I still go with mum and dad as well. So we enjoy going to footy. Yep.
Wow, that's insane. Yeah, it's interesting to hear someone go back right to the beginning, because obviously we've had some of the newer clubs on so far, and to have yourself on to go right back to the very start, it's going to be interesting. I'm sure you got a lot of stories to tell for sure.
Look, I have a few. Unfortunately, I don't have any jumpers from back then, but no, we traced it back when my grandfather was alive. He sort of went back through some of the family history and noticed that some of it was there. So it's not a bad thing. Except
absolutely.
Yeah, my dad got to see quite a few grand finals in the 50s and 60s, and unfortunately, I haven't seen a premiership, and neither has my son, obviously. So we're still striving to get that elusive flag.
Yes, well, yeah, I'm feeling that for sure. Unfortunately, how many games would you say you've attended then?
Yeah, good. Look, I try to keep as you do, keep stats and things like that, which my background is in accounting, so that probably makes a bit of sense. And I really only started going in about 1978 when I was about 6 with mum and dad, but been to about 670, I reckon, since then.
Oh,
which works out, that includes 25 different venues around the country, and never missed a Melbourne final in my lifetime. So born in 72, thankfully from that stat, we didn't actually play a final until 1987, but been to everyone since. I think there's been 3 or 4 interstaters in there. So, no, it's been a passion. Certainly love going to the footy, love the club. And this year I've only missed 1 game. So my son and I have been to every game this year that we've played in, except Alice Springs. We just couldn't get a cheap enough flight. So,
wow.
No, it's been good.
The interstate games and all?
Yeah, mate. Yep. Wow. So what have we done this year? Perth, Sydney, Darwin. Where else have we been? Crikey, can't even think. Brisbane and the Gold Coast. So, yeah, there you go. There's the others. We've got Hobart coming up, but he's coaching a junior team. He's only 19, but coaching an under-11s team, and they may be in a grand final that's coming up to that time of the year. So we're sort of waiting and seeing last-minute flight if we do go.
Yeah, that's a very impressive effort anyway. That's for definitely sure. So that's, yeah, okay. You've blown me completely there. I did not expect that at all. That's very impressive. So I have to come back. You said you've been to 25 interstate venues.
No, 25 venues.
Sorry, 25 venues in total.
Yep.
What's missing from that? There can't be too much.
So all the current venues that they've played in, I've been to. It's probably the ones that I haven't been to, or the old suburban grounds that they played at when I was just a bit young to either get on a train or a bus and go on my own, or mum and dad weren't keen to go and stand in the outer. So places like Arden Street, I'm not sure I went to. Punt Road was finished before I went there. It was before I was alive. So, been to Adelaide Oval, Footy Park, Canberra, been to the 3 Sydney venues, so ANZ Stadium, SCG, and what's it called now? Giant Stadium. So done all those. The 2 Brisbane ones, Darwin, Alice, I've done those. So, no, it's good fun. Enjoy it.
Yeah, it sounds amazing.
And the 3 Perth ones for you. There you go.
Beautiful. And you made your first trip over this year, was it? Or did you go last year?
No,
For Optus, sorry.
Yeah, to Optus last year. I went twice last year, so I saw the round 21 or 22 win that Melbourne had against West Coast that got us into the finals. Went to the prelim, which, anyway, that's another story. And I was over there earlier in the year as well. So it was, another not so good trip. But I think the first win I've actually seen in Perth was only that one in round 22 last year. So I think about 6 or 7 trips and only 1 win. So not ideal.
Any of the Freo games in there by any chance?
The 06 final I saw.
Oh, yep.
I was over for that one, but that's the only Freo Melbourne game I've been to. The rest have all been West Coast. So the first time I went there was in 91.
Yeah, interesting. We happened to be at I think it was 2008 when Freo are up by 50-odd points in third quarter and managed to stuff that up completely. At the G?
At the G, yes. Yep. There's not... Look, the games in Victoria, I only missed probably a couple of years when my son was playing footy on a Sunday afternoon. So I kind of made the decision not to go to the footy while he was playing. But no, certainly I did go to that Freo win that we had, where we were behind in 08. That was a good one.
Yeah, was for you, I'm sure. Okay, so we had to talk about jumpers, obviously. And actually, I've noticed you have called them jumpers when I've talked to you previously. Is there a reason you call them jumpers and not Guernseys or jerseys, or is that just something that you panted me about?
No. Look, funny enough, I've always called them a jumper.
Okay.
Probably back as a youngster, they had long sleeves, the ones that you got retail more often than not, and Mum probably wanted to put me in a long sleeve to keep me warm while I'm at the footy, so I've always called them jumpers. But when I'm searching for them, you put every single thing that you can think of to make sure you don't miss any going through on the site. So jumper, jersey, Guernsey, and I'll upset a few people by saying a few of those. But I even tried rugby vest, and that actually got me a jumper once. So,
oh wow,
I try anything to try and find a jumper, and I'm probably not alone in doing that sort of thing.
No, not at all. Especially if you're a legit collector, you know what to search for. So
yes,
yeah. So rugby vest, though, that's interesting. That's the first time I heard that one.
Know what to find.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So what was your very first jumper, and what was your very first player issue jumper? Therefore, I'm assuming you probably started collecting retail like the rest of us, really.
Yeah. So look, as I mentioned a moment ago, as a youngster, certainly the retails were the first jumpers. Ex-Freo coach I know reasonably well. Known him since 1983, Chris Connolly. Back, I think it might have been 84, he gave me a couple of his old red and blue Main Nicholas training jumpers. So still got them in the cupboard stashed away. So they were my first player issue jumpers. So I would have only been, about 12 or 13 back then, and had no idea the significance of them and what it meant. They were just jumpers that an AFL or VFL player back then gave me. So I used to wear them around and show them off and think I was pretty smart. So yeah, and then in 1987, Melbourne changed from the royal blue jumper to the navy blue, and that's when I got another retail version of that. And from then on, it was really just the retails going through to when I first started collecting player issues. I actually don't know the exact time frame when that actually happened. It was probably the first auction on the Melbourne website, and I can't remember which jumper that might have been that I've noticed one that they weren't going to sell at the as a retail version. So I thought, well, the only way I'm going to get it is to buy it at an auction, and that was the only reason I probably went on and got a player issue. And that's pretty much it. From there, it's just clearly snowballed to a ridiculous number.
Yeah. Well, okay, that's a good segue. How many would you say you have in your collection?
So look, there's a couple of answers to that. To be honest, mate, I did an audit back at the start of July, and I had about 283.
Nice.
But there's quite a few double ups in there, and I'll go into that in a minute. But I've probably picked up maybe 6 to 10 since then. So I'm going to be nudging 300 pretty soon. We've got a couple of auction jumpers that are coming through, and a couple of others that have been promised. So yeah, I'll hit 300 shortly.
That's amazing. Is that all Melbourne, I'm assuming?
Yes, it is all Melbourne. Some of you might have seen a post that I have on a Facebook page that I actually picked up a couple of Cawsey jumpers a couple of weeks ago. That Cawsey Demons are Melbourne's affiliate reserves team over here in Victoria, and I picked up 3 different jumpers there as well. So that's not going to start me on collecting Cawsey jumpers.
So is that the first time you've actually collected a VFL jumper or purchased a VFL jumper?
Yeah, it is. So certainly in that new era, obviously I've got a few VFL jumpers of when the AFL was known as a VFL, but certainly as a reserves jumper. Yeah, those ones, spotted them on Facebook and did a bit of searching and found some, so away we went.
Yeah, right, okay. That's interesting to know. So obviously you must have some sort of goal in mind for your collection then, if you're just trying to stay away from the VFL type stuff. So
yeah.
what is it? What is your end goal here?
The end goal is get as many as I possibly can. Look, obviously initially I started collecting just the retails and try and get ones that they'd worn, and it was quite easy to do. Obviously every club, I'm pretty sure every club has a memorabilia shop that you can go down and just buy the retails off the shelf. So that was pretty easy. Back in 2007, I actually on an auction site bidded and got 2 jumpers. Would you believe? Thinking that I'd been knocked off on one, so jumped on a different one and ended up with 2. So probably over the last 5 years, I'm now aiming to get 2 of every design, which is why the collection's up so high, which is a challenge. So what the end goal is to try and get 2 of every design player issue, focusing on things from 1976 onwards when the VFL patch first came into play on jumpers. Trying to get those is obviously extremely difficult. Getting the new ones is reasonably easy. So getting 2 of each jumpers, that's now morphed into try and get 2 of every player issue number that's out there as well. So I've got every number from 1 to 52, and I've got a 55 and a 56, and I'm pretty close to getting 2 of each of the numbers as well. So not really sure what the goal will be from there. Probably try and get every listed player that is on a current list. So in 2019, I've got a heap to get, but a few of those will drop off, and I'll try and get the player issues for them as they go on in next year, I suppose.
Wow, that's absolutely quality. So when you're looking at an auction or something like that, you wouldn't go straight to a particular player. You're going to look to fill in holes of gaps and numbers and things like that before you're going for a specific player at all, or?
Yeah, so that's again another challenge for us. Certainly this year, Melbourne's worn the Indigenous jumpers 3 times. They're going to be auctioning shortly, I believe, the Royal Blue Clash jumper as well, which I think they've worn 4 or 5 times this season. So there's a few of us hardcore supporters that have got together, and I've got to meet quite a few of them, and we've got regular contact between a few of us that really try and focus on who's played in the 5 games or 4 games or 3 games. So when they auction them, we probably target the ones that have played in all the games that they've worn the jumpers in. Usually they're the ones that go for the most. So as you mentioned a moment ago, I would try and get the numbers that I'm trying to catch up on, all the players that I haven't actually got in my collection for the current list as well. So this year, I think the Indigenous ones I picked up, both of them were match worn, but they only worn, I think one was worn in 2 games, one was worn in 1 game. Jeff Garlett actually wore one of them. It's the first Indigenous jumper I've got of an Indigenous player, so I was pretty happy with that as well.
Yeah, okay. You mentioned other collectors or other people that you tend to confide in with your jumpers. I only really know of probably 4 or 5 Melbourne collectors. Is there is there many out there? I'm assuming there is quite a lot, but they're not too out there, I think.
No, so the 4 or 5 that you know, I'm probably pretty friendly with, and we communicate on a regular basis. And that's, I think, some of the challenges that we have as collectors. Are there a lot of new collectors coming into the market for us to either find old gear that we're trying to top up our collection for, or is it some of the flash in the pans that are only just trying to get certain players and things like that, and then move on? So when the auctions come up for Melbourne, and I think last year they had 7 different jumpers they wore. This year they had 5, I think. So there's always that challenge. We've gone to the lengths of actually creating an understanding out of the results of auctions to work out who the main buyers are. And there's quite a few that are regular buyers, but we don't see them a lot on any of the other forums. So whether they're just current player purchases or whether they're more silent collectors that don't get too involved, not too sure. But probably 3 of us are really hardcore, and there's a couple of others that sort of filter in and out every now and then.
Yeah. I think most of those seem to be the younger ones who really prefer the modern jumpers anyway. So you could be lucky there trying to keep away from all your older stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a good point. And those guys are trying to get some of the big name players, and I've got quite a few spares, and they want them almost for nothing. So that gets a little bit frustrating, and they get a bit hard to deal with and get a bit frustrating and try to string you out on the sales a bit. But you get to know who they are, and you work the system.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to ask you about how you store your jumpers. Now, I'm looking in your video right now as we're doing this over Skype.
Yep.
And I can see, at the moment, 6 jumpers on your wall, all framed.
Yep.
Now, I'm assuming there's a hell of a lot more. So run us through how you've got your jumpers stored.
Yeah, perfect. So there are actually 38 jumpers that I've got framed. So we're currently sitting in my study, so you can only see 6 in here. I've got a pool room downstairs in the house that's a bit of a shrine to the Melbourne Footy Club. There's a few WEG posters in there. There's the miniature premiership cups that you can buy, and there's a space for the next one of each of those. God only knows when that's going to happen, but there's a space waiting for them to be filled in. So yeah, there's 38 framed on the wall down there. No more room on the pool room wall, unfortunately. So as much as I try to get my wife to let me bring them up into the main part of the house, they're not getting framed and put on the wall at this point. So previously, up until probably the last 2 or 3 weeks, they've been stored in the plastic boxes you get from Bunnings or the reject shop, and again, run out of room under the pool table for all of those. So I've actually recently found 6 cupboard lockers that you can put together, which took a little bit of a while to manufacture and put up. So I've got 18 lockers that are currently filled with all the jumpers, and 2 more sets coming to fit the rest. So they're stored in the garage at the minute, which is attached to the house, so and lockable. So they're all nice and safe.
Beautiful. So you're 30, how would you say, 36 or 38 frame
38
jumpers?
frame, yep.
Are they all player issue match worn jumpers?
No, is the answer. So most of those will be retail. There are a few that are player issue and a few that are match worn. One of the challenges I have is that I don't actually know the players whose they are because I didn't actually pay too much attention to it. It was back when I wasn't really focused on player issue jumpers. It was more the front of the jumper that I was concerned about. So there's a couple that you can see the number through. There's white clash jumpers, so you can see the number that's come through. So I can make a good assumption on those. And there's a couple of others that I know and one of them's a heritage jumper where they put the player appearance number on the front breast as well. So did a bit of research and found out that was actually Scott Thompson who moved back to Adelaide after about 40 odd games at Melbourne. So yeah, the challenge I've got is that I might have to unframe some of them to work out which players' jumpers I have in the frame. So I've just got to work out a time and some money to get someone to have a look at that for me, because I will want them reframed. Okay,
so you've never actually unframed a jumper as of yet?
No, not yet.
Curiosity hasn't gotten the best of you?
No, I've no, at the moment I haven't done it. I've got a framing. When you frame 38 jumpers, you've got a framing guy, right? So
of course,
I've had a chat to him about it, and he said, "Oh, look, he'll do me a deal to have a look at them and put them back in the frame for me." So while there's still jumpers out there to collect, they can be a surprise down the track, I think.
You've got much more resolve than I do, because they don't last long for me, especially if I don't know what number's on the back. They're out instantly. So
fair enough.
Okay, so we go back to, you say 1976. Now I can't remember why I remember that number in my head, but 1976 comes to mind. But your oldest player issue jumper in your collection, what would it be?
Yeah, so 76, the reason I chose that is when the VFL patches got put on the jumpers. So a little bit easier to, I suppose, identify a little bit to probably determine whether or not they are player issues. Again, photo matching and doing video footage on those types of jumpers is extremely difficult nowadays when you've got AFL photos and Getty images and you've got every game televised. It's a little bit easier to try and identify those jumpers. So that's the reason I've chosen 76.
Yeah.
So the oldest player issue jumper I've got, and I mentioned him before, Chris Conley, I've got his 1981 under-19s premiership jumper.
Okay.
So I said 1981. He played his first senior game, I think, in 83. So it's funny how that one came about. As I said, I've known him for quite a while, and jumpers had never been a question that I'd asked. It was more a friendship piece. So I threw it out there and said, "Oh yeah, you should have told me earlier. I could have got you heaps when I was working back at Melbourne." I'm thinking, "Yeah, good one, good on you, Dave. Why didn't you think of that earlier?" Typical. But it was earlier this year actually. He just rang up and said, "Look, I'm around your area. I'll just drop these jumpers off on your front doorstep." And I thought, "Oh yeah, no worries." He ended up dropping 3 or 4 on the front doorstep, and my son was. He was home at the time, so he's opened up and says, "Oh, some blokes just dropped these footy jumpers off here." I said, "Oh, yeah, no worries." He didn't knock on the door. No, he didn't. So he was a bit disappointed that Chris Conley didn't knock on the door and say good day to him. But we've opened them, and his under-19s jumper was number 11. Now, he wore 22 in the senior, so I thought, oh, well, that's a bit of a strange number. And the other jumpers he gave me were number 22, so that was okay. So I had to ring him up and firstly thank him for the jumpers, but find out what that one was. He said, "Oh yeah, that was me under-19 premiership jumper." So I thought, okay, well that's got a bit of sentimental value, and he's given it to someone who's going to appreciate it. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. So do you know any, or do you have any other relationships with any other players, current, former, previous, anything like that?
Look, there's quite a few loose relationships. Just you can say good day to. A friend of mine is good mates with David Swartz. So, and I've got to know him reasonably well. I had actually sat at the finals with him back in last year at the Melbourne Hawthorn game. So I've got to know him reasonably well. Unfortunately, getting jumpers off him, he said he's more than happy to give them to me, which is fantastic. But his mum's got him under lock and key and won't let him near them. So if he can't get them, I'm not going to get them. So he's probably the I suppose the next closest who I know reasonably well. But quite a few that we've had a chat to. And again, I mentioned the hardcore supporters, the 2 or 3 of us who get together, and we've had quite a few conversations with quite a lot of players actually to try and identify whether they have their jumpers or whether they've got, or whether they know where their jumpers are, or whether they're happy to get rid of them. And get rid of it's probably a bit harsh, on sell them or hand them over to us. So we're creating a bit of a list of the players who we've spoken to and where their jumpers are at. So I think we're up to about 45 or 50 players that we've spoken to across the 3 of us, and we've had some success, which is good, but some other successes, not so much. Where quite a few of the players back in the 80s and 90s didn't get a lot of their jumpers, but if they did, they either handed them to family members or just didn't really care about them. So they get a bit harder to get, and a lot of them were reused the following year. They just had badges swapped out and swapped back in again. So we're finding that a little bit as well.
Yeah. I actually have another question for you, branching off from that. However, got a little story that I just wanted to share from David Schwartz. It's just something that just popped in my head that I remember from years ago now. I don't remember, but remember the show on Foxtel called White Line Fever?
Yep.
With Clinton Grabus, and Swarter was often on there as a guest.
Yep.
I think I texted in, as you do with those shows, and they'll read out some of the things you text in. Well, it was after the Melbourne and Fremantle game where Jeffrey Farmer absolutely floated one through to win the game.
Yeah, I remember that one. Wasn't happy with that.
Yeah, I remember it very well as well, because I remember Clinton reading out my text message, which was, I was so excited by the end of that game, I jumped up out of the chair and I snapped my ankle. I landed up very awkwardly. So, I just really remember Swarter just looking directly in the camera about 5 minutes later and saying, "Oh, man, just going back to that guy with a broken ankle. I'm real sorry about that, but at least you got to win. So, you can't be too upset." So, the only thing I've ever had to do with Swarter, so that was something that I remember forever, and that was quite nice. So,
a little bit different.
It's very different. Okay, so yeah, you mentioned that you're doing a bit of a collaboration with some of the players trying to figure out who's got what. Do you know of any that collect their jumpers already?
Which players collect their own and keep their own jumpers?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's quite a few that, and Swart is one of those. It's actually his mum that's hanging on to them. But yeah, there's quite a few that say, look, I'm keeping them for my own prosperity, or I'm saving them up for my kids, which is fine. Quite a few of them have it, and I picked up a few off Steve and Phoebe, one of the collectors on the Facebook sites, linked me up with Steve and Phoebe, and I managed to pick up 6 or 7 of his jumpers earlier in the year as well. Now that cost me quite a bit, but that's all good. But he said, look, they're just sitting in the garage, they're collecting dust. Yeah, they mean something to me, but ultimately, clearly, you're a pretty solid collector and you know what you're talking about, and I'd love to see them go to someone that really wants them rather than just gathering dust in my garage. So there'd be quite a few of them out there as well. And recently caught up with, I mentioned before, my son who coaches a junior footy team. He coached against Matthew Bishop, who played a couple of seasons at Melbourne and then went and played at Port Adelaide and played in their premiership. And I reached out to him after having a chat to him, but I didn't actually ask him up front. I thought I'd go via Messenger and just say g'day and, hey, look, by the way, any chance you might have them? He said, look, they're in the garage, but my kids are, 8 and 10 and I'm saving them up for them. So appreciate you got a nice collection, because I send him a link to my Facebook page. And but he said, look, if anything ever changes, I've got your details. So those sorts of communications we sort of fire out a little bit to hopefully get a bite down the track.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The more people that know about your collection and know how passionate you are, the more likely that you never know, they might just slip you one every now and then, or even tell some of their mates who may have been playing back in the day that might have some as well that they could slip you. So it's definitely good to have those connections, without a doubt. Yeah,
and again, I mentioned before the guys that I communicate a fair bit with, we don't, we're not in it to on sell and make money out of it. And I think quite a few of the players might be a bit apprehensive about those sorts of things happening out there. We make it pretty clear that, hey, these are going into a collection and not going anywhere. And I think that sort of eases their mind a little bit. But at the same time, we want to get as many bloody jumpers as we can, right? So, and we don't want to be pests. So we make sure that as long as we know that we've spoken to them, we keep a note of it. So every now and then say, have you spoken to so-and-so? And we check it out and go, yeah, no, someone's already spoken. Let's move on to the next one. So as long as they give us a response, whether it's a positive or negative, we, I suppose, put a line through them and move on to the next one in the footy record pretty much.
Have you ever done it face-to-face at a training?
Ask the question.
Yeah.
Look, I don't go to a lot of trainings. Obviously, back in the day when training was from 5 until 7, you could probably get down there a bit, but now they train at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and you've got to fuel the collection by actually working every now and then. So I struggle to get down there. I was in Sydney watching the footy and bumped into David Neitz and just asked him straight out. Paul Hopgood was up there as well. So if I see them in an environment that's conducive to having a chat around that sort of thing, yeah, certainly happy to ask. Earlier this year, my wife convinced me to make up some business cards as a MFC jumper collection with my phone number and name on it. So I got 500 of them printed up and I hand them out as much as I possibly can as well. So any opportunity you have to try and get some jumpers, mate, we'll do anything we can.
That's a tremendous idea. I quite like that. I might just steal it at some point.
I'll send you one over. You can hand it out to a few of the ex-Melbourne players over there. That'd be good.
Absolutely. There's a few over here, actually. I was talking to Dean Kent's sister recently.
Oh, yeah, good one. Yep.
She was actually selling some of his jumpers on Gumtree. Sorry, not on Gumtree, on Facebook Marketplace. And she gave me a price of $100 for 3, which was tremendous price, and I was all keen to go get them. I was very excited, and I said, yep, I'm on my way, and she never responded to me with her address, so she hasn't responded to me for over a week and a half now, so I guess they're gone. So unless he's got a wind of it and he's shut it down.
Shut it down, potentially. I've got a couple of Dean's jumpers. I like the way he goes about his footy, so I was a bit disappointed when he moved on to Security, but if you ever get across those, I've got a few in his vintage that I need to get as well, mate, so we can have a chat about that later on.
Yeah, nice. Well, hopefully she's just not a Facebook person. She actually gets back to me eventually, and hopefully I can get a bit of a relationship going there.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? You get a sniff of something, you send a message out, and you follow it up, and then all of a sudden it goes really cold, and you think, oh, now what do I do? Do I keep badgering? Do I be a pest? Or, yeah, how far do you go to try and keep hassling to try and get that elusive jumper that you're trying to get off them? So certainly when you're talking to players, that's something that I find a bit of a challenge. You don't want to be a pest because otherwise they'll just shut you right out.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we got to remember that some of these guys that are playing footy now, especially the modern day players, they're all younger than us, which is
good point.
Very sad to say. So it might be a bit intimidating or a little bit odd us coming towards them and saying, "Oh, can I buy your clothing off you?"
Yeah,
it does sound a bit weird. So you can understand why they get maybe a bit apprehensive sometimes. But
yeah, it's funny you say that. Taking jumpers off people's backs, mate. That's one of the things that I've actually started this year at the footy.
This is interesting.
It's the hardcore guys that we're talking about. We call it shopping. So when the business card, it actually started at the Melbourne Family Day they have every year. This year was at Yarra Park, so just outside the MCG there, and as they do with family days, there's jumping castles and all the stuff there. And I thought, well, I might just go along and see what I can find. And I thought there might be some people out there wearing jumpers that I need, and if they're player issues, I'll just ask the question. Sure enough, there was a guy wearing a 2002 pre-season Guernsey that I think I'd only seen one or two floating around in the past. I said, mate, you interested in selling your jumper? He said, what, the one I'm wearing? And I said, yeah, mate, happy to take it off your back. Go down to the store and buy one of the brand new ones. And he looked at it and goes, well, I actually don't fit into this too well. It's a bit tight. Can we go down and get an extra large or an 2XL? And so I walked straight down to the shop and I said, mate, don't be surprised if the people say, g'day, Dave, how you going? Because I know the guys at the shop pretty well. So sure enough, they did. And I said, I'm just here to buy this bloke a jumper. So he's taken his jumper off, put the new one on, and away I went with a pretty rare jumper. So so that started something, and that's seen me pick up, I think, about 5 or 6 off people's backs at the footy this season.
This season?
Yeah, this season. It's been it's been really weird, including a 2019 Nathan Jones jumper that had been auctioned off at a supporters function probably about half an hour before the game. So the bloke had only had it for maybe an hour or so. He was wearing it around the ground, and I said, mate, where'd you get that from? Because it was obviously only about 5 or 6 weeks into this. He said, oh, it was auctioned off. I said, mate, would you sell it? He says, yeah, well, I bought it impulsive, and I don't really need it. I'll take what I paid for it. And I said, okay, how much did you pay for it? So he told me the amount, and I said, done, I'll get the cash. And so that was a quarter time. Half time I had the Nathan Jones jumper. So
that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so I've handed out quite a few cards and don't get a heap of response back from people, which is a bit unfortunate. So I should be asking for their phone number, but no, it's worked well. I said about 5 or 6 jumpers this year off people's backs at the footy, which seems a bit strange if they're wearing a jumper, which is no good in the winter in Melbourne because people wear jackets over the top of their jumpers. So
yes,
you can't see what they're wearing. So it gets a bit harder when it's a bit colder, but early season, it's all the go.
Yeah, my head is always on a swivel at the footy. Every time someone walks past, my head just flies to the right and see what's on the back. And if I see a number, I'll start following them. But I've only actually really followed and approached one person, and I just straight up said, mate, I'll give you $500 for that jumper. And his wife nearly fell over. Yeah. And he said, no, sorry, mate, I can't do that. It's a gift. So I was very upset about that because that $500 off was way more than it was worth. But
yeah, there was an 08 Clash Guernsey. It's one of our worst ever jumpers. This horrible silver one. It looks ridiculous, and we had a horrible season. Well, so it's not ideal. But I had been chasing one for ages, and I saw a Jared Rivers on this young bloke at the footy, and I've gone, surely not. So I've wandered over and I said, mate, I'm a big collector. I'm happy to buy that jumper off you. Is it for sale? He's gone, Dad, we've got an issue here. So he's asked his dad, and his old man said, oh yeah, well, what would you pay for it? I said, I'll give you 200. Actually, I'll give you $250 for it. They've gone, are you kidding? Son, get that jumper off. We can go down and buy 2 jumpers at the shop for that. So again, that they don't come all that often, the 08 here Clash jumpers. So to get one for that price, I was pretty happy, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing somebody in the crowd at Matthew Pavich's last game, and they was wearing a 2005 Clash player issue, probably Matt Vaughan, bad jumper, and it took all the strength not to run down there and offer him some money, but I would think he would want a hell of a lot of money for it, so I just stayed away because I'm not a rich man, unfortunately, so I didn't want to upset myself when he gave me a number, so... Yeah, but no, I would actually love to follow you around at a game one day and see what it's like when you see some jumpers, because I reckon it'd be very entertaining.
No, it's a bit of fun. And there was one that my son picked up again back at the family day. He said, I think you might need this one. And he took a photo of it. I've gone, it is, mate, perfect. But I was at the opposite end of the family day, so I had to race from one side to the other. What he didn't tell me was it was on a 4-year-old kid, and I'm thinking, mate, come on, I can't be taking jumpers off the backs of kids. So I ended up speaking to his mum, who about 2 weeks later at the first game of the season ended up ringing me and said, look, I've got that jumper for you. Sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you. And I've also got this other one. Do you want that as well? And I said, yep, sure can. So I ended up getting two of I think one was a Travis Johnson, it might have been a Brad Green and a Cameron Bruce. So two decent players, and they were, I think, 04 or 05 Clash jumpers. So, yeah, leave no stone unturned trying to get the jumpers, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So I know it's going to be rather difficult, but I reckon you've probably got some written down or know in your head what your answer is going to be.
Yeah.
Out of the 280 odd jumpers that you've currently got, what are some of your favourites in that collection?
Yeah, look, I've mentioned, the Connells Premiership jumpers, a pretty special one, obviously. I've also got a 1984 Reserves Premiership jumper, which they only wore Hertz as a logo for 1984, so that's a pretty good one to have. I'm pretty happy with that. A 1999 player issue Guernsey. This is the one that I picked up that I mentioned before about rugby vest. It was a long sleeve, number 56. It was. Simon Godfrey wore it in his first season. I think he might have been on a sup list, so it's obscure as all obscure. So I don't mind that one. I picked up off Facebook Marketplace number 32. It was a Damien Gasper jumper, so doesn't mean a great deal. He probably does in Perth. He's a West Australian boy. But when I picked it up, the AFL logo, the shield one, had been sewn over a centenary jumper. So it was a 1996 centenary jumper that had been rebadged the following year with the old. So the centenary logo had been taken off, and the AFL logo had been put back on. So I'd much prefer the centenary logo on it, to be brutally honest.
Yeah,
but that's not a bad one that I don't mind in the collection. A couple of jumpers that you've given me actually, and you mentioned it on a couple of your previous podcasts. The Gorn name games are a beauty, and I think you gave me the Stephen Phoebe Grand Final jumper in 2000.
Correct, yep.
So pretty happy to get that. And the 2018 member recognition jumper. Now that might mean a great deal to you, but I got called up at the club probably this time last year, and they said, look, we've gone through our records and noticed that you've been to every game this year and you've been a member for 40 odd years. This year, and they've done a few years where they invite 22 people out on the ground and get presented a jumper.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they also said, well, because you and your dad and son, so the three of us ended up getting out and going on the ground to pick up some jumpers. And it was not an allocated jumper that you got. Everyone just walked up the race and go stand behind a jumper, and the player will come out and give you that jumper. I thought, who am I going to go for here? Do I go for Clayton Oliver? Do I go for Max Gawn? Who do I go for? And I was about third or fourth in line. So those guys got taken up pretty quick. And I thought, oh, there's number two there. So another Nathan Jones, I stood right there and had a quick chat to him. My son picked up Angus Brayshaw's, and my dad got James Harms. So the three of us on the MCG getting presented jumpers was a pretty special moment. So, they're probably the most favourite I've got in the collection.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool. I would love something like that at Freo, but yeah, I've never seen anything like that, unfortunately. But no, that is an awesome thing to happen. And I've seen that happen at a few clubs. So if that could get around at most clubs, I think that would be real icing for some of us collectors, I think. Yeah,
and look, there'll be people out there getting jumpers that have no idea to a collector how much they're worth and what their value is to them. So, which is fine. There's no problems with that. But obviously, when I see people going out and getting a free jumper that I might want, then I'll try and keep an eye out and see where they sit and go chat to them later on.
I was going to say, how many after that experience did you follow afterwards and you tap them on the shoulder and, excuse me?
Yeah, look, it's funny. I knew probably about half a dozen that were getting the jumpers there. So back in the 90s, I was heavily involved in the cheer squad, probably for about 5 or 6 years. So I still know quite a heap of people in there. And now my son is dragged in there every week. He's helping to run the joint as well, I think. So when we go into state, the only tickets you can get to sit is pretty much the cheer squad allocation. So got to know quite a few back of them again, and they're on the lookout now for me as well. They've all got a little wad of cards that they hand out to people. So I've got them all working for me.
Got a severe network going on there. I like it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you pretty much got your jumpers from every avenue they can possibly get. Now you've got them off the back of 4-year-old kids. You've got them on the MCG during a game.
Yeah.
Where else do you find your jumpers? I know Melbourne are quite good. They have a number of jumpers often going to their store, whether it be some of the ones that didn't sell at auction, or even now and then they will just throw in some of the higher players or high numbered players.
Yep.
Where else do you find your jumpers?
I've probably given you the most obscure ones, I would think, but Melbourne are pretty good at auctioning off. They've certainly taken a fair bit of my coin over the time. At eBay Gumtree, found one at not many Melbourne jumpers get dumped off at op shops, but I have found one through the Salvation Army op shop. So that was an Aaron Davey jumper, would you believe? So I'm not really sure how that would get thrown away. And it was, I think, about $75, and it was, if you picked it up, you didn't have to pay postage. So that's not too far from home. So I wandered around and picked that one up. So that was a pretty handy pickup. A couple off Facebook Marketplace, big footy forums. There's quite a few people on there. I think that's where I got one off yourself.
Yeah.
Club contacts. So again, having supported and been in the state, there's quite a few club contacts that I have. And I think one of the key things that I've done over the last probably last 6 or 7 years, has got to know the Demon Shop, the manager of the shop extremely well. The one that left 2 years ago, I got to know really well, and still keep in contact with her now that she's moved on. She's working for the VFL now, I think, and so that's pretty cool. But the guy that's in there at the moment's doing a great job keeping us collectors informed as to what's going on, and if anything interesting comes up that he hears of, or he knows what's coming up, he lets us know to get ready and that sort of thing. So no, we know him extremely well, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he has your name on speed dial, I think.
Yeah, and messenger and emails. So look, he certainly helps us out significantly, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Actually, we've heard from a few of the collectors, including myself, that some of the clubs actually do end-of-season clean-outs and sales.
Yep.
Melbourne do anything like that?
Certainly for the retail stuff, they do. And you mentioned before that the shop actually puts out the unsold auction ones. They keep them up at the reserve price for quite a while, and then slowly filter them down to the lesser value. Usually the rookie listed players, or the players that the senior listed players that don't end up playing a senior game, are the ones that sort of hang around. And there's quite a few actually down at the shop at the moment that I've seen. I don't need them. I've already got a couple each of those designs, so someone else can take those. And
it's a tip for you.
If there's any Melbourne collectors, apart from the guys that I know reasonably well, that need a jumper that they haven't got in their collection, they're on sale now at the Melbourne shop under the MCG there.
Beautiful. Well done.
I'm not getting paid for the plugs, but we'll see how we go.
Okay, so without getting hit by your missus, or if there's anyone around too close that you don't want, we might just bring the volume down a little bit.
Yeah,
what is the most you've ever spent on a single jumper?
Yeah, $1,200.
That's not too bad.
Not too bad at all. So, stupidly, I've been keeping a list of how much I've spent, and it's actually a pretty frightening number when you think about it. That doesn't include the framing. So, yeah, anyway, we'll move on from that. But, the $1,200, it was for the reserves premiership jumper. So it was a little bit overs, but they don't come up all that often. So certainly the 1984 jumper, I knew it was, I was able to match it off the footage that I found. So I was pretty happy to pay that. But there's been a few between the 500 and 1,000 mark that I've forked over. But yeah, nothing more than 1,200, which I'm pretty happy with. Yeah, I know some of the guys that I communicate with have spent a little bit more on that, but they've been purchasing players such as Robbie Flower and Ron Barassi. So when you find those coming up and you're in the market and you get the opportunity, then you spend that kind of bigger coin. And if the opportunity comes up for me, I'd probably dip straight in and do the same thing.
Yeah, right. So if you keep an eye on the Lesky auctions and things like that, and I think there's one gone now, but it was a big memorabilia or auction house that's now closed down. But
yeah,
quite
Moss Green. Moss Green was the one you were talking about. Yeah, I bought a few out of Moss Green. Lesky had his own auctions probably in the early 2000s, and then got bought out by Moss Green, and then gone and set up his own again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, I keep an eye out on all of those. Cash Converters have got an auction site as well, if you didn't know.
Not many. Didn't know.
Yeah, there you go. So there's another one. I've probably just given away a buddy secret.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, but there's to be honest, there's not a lot on there. I don't go on there as often as you go onto Facebook or eBay or Gumtree. That's where you seem to find the majority of things getting sold off on. So
yeah,
that's probably my focus. But yeah, those other areas are always worth having a look at. That's for sure.
Absolutely. It's always obscure places that you can find some seriously good stuff. So yeah, anywhere you can look, especially that's a great tip. I'm definitely going to have a look there.
Yeah,
I'll keep away from Melbourne jumpers though, I promise.
Yeah, no, do that.
Okay, so how much would you say you spent on jumpers altogether?
So without having the list in front of me, and I probably prefer not to say just in case the wife does have the room tapped, but she's across she knows what I'm doing. The eBay accounts are pretty much a joint eBay account, so she gets the emails as quick as I do when something gets bought, and she says, "What the hell have you bought now?" So, "What do you think? What do you think I've bought?" But yeah, she always says, "I probably could have had a new car by now if I didn't buy all these jumpers." And little does she know how nice a car that would be. Yeah, so it's quite extensive the amount I've spent, but it doesn't worry me. That's all good.
Yeah.
You can't take it with you?
No, that's right. And if someone asked you the value of your collection, would you tell them it would be around about what you paid, or would you clearly value it, a little bit more than that?
I would probably tell them roughly what I've spent.
Mm-hmm.
What their value is what someone's going to pay for them, right? So, as you mentioned before, there's not a heap of us Melbourne collectors out there, and the ones that I'm always speaking with, we kind of swap and change with each other jumpers here and there and trade amongst ourselves. If we find one that I need and I see it, I buy it and swap it with something that they've got that I don't have. So a bit of a network we've got going, which is working really well. But apart from that, I'd probably say they're worth heaps to me, but what are they worth to anybody else? Well, how much do you want to pay for them, I suppose?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you mentioned that your wife is pretty good. What does your entire family, specifically your wife, I guess, think about your collection?
Oh, look, I've known my wife since 91. We got together in 94 and married in 98. So she's had a fair run with knowing what I'm like from a Melbourne Football Club perspective. Is she overly happy that I keep buying jumpers and not spending it on her? No, she probably doesn't care too much, to be honest. She knows keeps me happy, so that's probably a good thing. My daughter, who's 17, has no concept really. She's a dancer and does gymnastics, and if you asked her who she bagged for, it would be Melbourne, but she doesn't really care too much. And she says, "What do you got another jumper for? Because you've got so many already. They all look the same to me, blah, blah, move on." The son loves it. So I never thought I'd see someone as passionate as me, and people all the time say that, but I think he's certainly got the bug of supporting Melbourne. But is he a collector? No, he's not. Does he have any player issue jumpers? Yeah, he's probably got 6 or 8 that I've bought him over the time. He plays footy, so he wears his to training and he wears them to the games and all that sort of stuff. And that doesn't worry me because that's what he wants to do with them. And I've already got 2 each of those designs, so it doesn't matter.
If you didn't, you wouldn't have them, so.
Yeah, well, exactly right. Look, they're pretty supportive of that. Do I go out and spend a lot of money on other things? No, I don't. It's really only jumpers. So I always get asked, why don't you collect footy cards or other memorabilia? And I said, because, they don't excite me as much as the jumpers do, and I don't think I could afford starting that type of a collection up either.
So I was actually going to ask you that. Do you not collect anything else other than football jumpers?
As passionately, no. So it's just jumpers. The club have been handing out a few things here and there. Do I take freebies? Yeah, absolutely. What do I do with them? They're sitting on the bar at the moment. What will I end up doing with them? Well, they'll probably end up going in the in the filing cabinet somewhere and not worry about it. But look, one of the guys that and you've probably come across him as well has got a website, grandoldflag.com. His name's Joel. His collection is out of this world. Well, I haven't been to his place yet. It's something that we're planning to do. He'd have more Melbourne memorabilia than the Melbourne Footy Club would have, and they actually go to him to get displays put together for premiership reunions and things like that. So I know you've spoken to him in the past and probably have a chat to him about his jumper collection as well, but he keeps trying to get me into cards and I keep telling him to go away, pretty much.
Oh, that's right. Well, you got to keep the money for the real stuff. So
yeah, spot on. That's it.
So I mentioned previously in episode, I can't remember which episode it was now, 2, I believe, but about cardboard addicts. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because there was a few blokes on there talking about whether they share their collection. We're talking about it to friends, co-workers, things like that. Some of them won't talk about what they have, how much they spent, anything like that, purely because it's, I don't know, it's embarrassing or they may not think that people care. How do you go about sharing a collection with people outside of your family or other collectors, things like that? Do you share it with your co-workers or anything like that?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. One of my co-workers who's he's actually got me a couple of jumpers. He was at a kindergarten charity function. There was a couple of Melbourne jumpers that he put bids on and ended up winning. And he says, "Here you go. I've just made a donation to the kindergarten, so I don't have to do the working bee. You can have the jumpers." So, there's people out there that understand what I do, and I don't hide that I'm a Melbourne supporter. Sometimes, especially this season, you probably would want to hide as a Melbourne supporter, but I'm certainly open and honest with what I do. And a lot of mates think I'm a nut, but again, they've only known me as a Melbourne supporter who collects jumpers, so I probably come across as a nut anyway. So that's no, I have no issues in telling people what I do and what I get up to. Mum and Dad think it's a bit strange that I buy all these jumpers, but I blame them, to be honest, because they dragged me to the football when I was 6.
I could just see yourself walking up to someone and say, "Hey, going, Dave Cawsey, MFC jumper collector. How you going?"
Yeah, look, I do that at the footy when I want to buy a jumper, and I hand them a card, so they know where things are at.
Tremendous. Do you have an outright favourite in your collection? Just one outright favourite, or is that too hard to question?
Nah, when you got almost 300, pretty hard. I think the favourite is always the next one you get.
Yeah,
to be really honest.
Sure.
As I said, there's been an auction that finished a couple of weeks ago, and those jumpers are almost ready to go. I'm really looking forward to getting them. You know, a couple of new Indigenous jumpers to the collection, and one that I'm looking forward to. It's been a while coming, and I had a bit of involvement in the design of the Anzac jumper this year.
Oh, nice.
So I put a suggestion up to the merchandise manager we talked about, and he said, "That's a great idea. Let's put it together." And the main concept didn't quite work because it would have looked like a Hawaiian jumper, as it turned out. But this year we put all the players who played for Melbourne who sadly passed in wartime on the back as a memorial to them. So that was my idea. I didn't think it was all that rocket science to do that, but they thought so. So they've promised me a player issue jumper, but just waiting for that to come, and hopefully that's not too far away. And I think that will probably become the new favourite, I reckon, given I had some involvement in the design.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a very sentimental jumper. And I find that most people, rather than a whale type jumper, when I ask them the question of their favourite jumper, it usually turns out to be something that's more of a sentimental answer.
Yeah.
So, like for instance, mine previously, I couldn't give you the answer, but now that I have David Mundy's 300 game jumper, that is my number one jumper in my collection. A lot of people look at it and go, "Why the hell would that be a number one?" But again, like you say, it's a sentimental type thing. In fact, that he called me when I purchased it and asked me how he would like me to sign it, and we've got a good rapport. We're actually quite good mates now. So.
Yeah, That would have been a no-brainer if you would have asked me what your favourite was. You'd hit that one up straight away. So, no, it's a great jumper, mate. And forming a relationship with a player like that, you're going to have to form another one soon, I would think. He's probably coming a year or two away from retiring at a guess. So, you just need to tap at the shoulder, get him to introduce you to another young gun and see if you can get 300 games out of him.
Yeah, sadly, yes. But, yeah, we'll see what we can do. There's actually really good blokes around Freo. I do know a few of the blokes down there and have a good real chat. Actually, I played basketball with them last year, Luke Ryan and Brendan Cox. Luke Ryan is an absolute gun. He's an absolute gentleman as well. So he's one I might be hitting up in the future.
Away you go.
All right, I've got one more question for you.
Yep, sure.
What is the one jumper that you do not have in your collection that you would absolutely have to have in future? Or even if you can't have it, there's got to be one that you want to have.
So you can see it on the footage, mate. I've just reached across to my wallet, where I carry a list of the jumpers that I need.
Beautiful.
Oh, look, a tough question. For me, I managed to pick one up over the last week or so, is the centenary round jumper. I picked up a player issue of that reenactment game, which was fantastic, and the person that traded that to me indebted for quite a while. So that was at the top of the list. There's a few obscure ones that I'd really like to get, but I think getting them is going to be difficult. Melbourne played a couple of games overseas in 87 and 89, and they wore jumpers that had a Foster's logo on them. So only the players will have those. They were never released, obviously. So, and I've never, ever seen one up for grabs. So there'll be a fight between the three of us when one miraculously appears, but they're probably top of the list of ones that I want to get, and some of the other ones from the centenary season. I haven't got a home jumper, albeit that one that I had rebadged. I'd love to get one of those, and a pre-season one from that year as well. It'd be a beauty, I know there's a guy out there, Doug, who collects centenary jumpers that would probably be wanting those as well. So there'd be an additional fight on our hands to try and get that one, but they're probably the main ones that I'd be after, I'd suggest.
Yeah, lovely. So it looks like you got a bit of money left to spend, unfortunately.
Yeah, a little bit. I reckon I've got probably about 30 jumpers to get where I've got doubled up of everything. So not a bad effort for 45 odd years or thereabouts of collecting. All right, in 76 I only wore one jumper for the year, and then last year they wore 7. So a bit easier to get one a year if you can do that. So that's one of the questions I've got at the for the club merchandise guy to maybe reduce the number of jumpers just to save a bit of cash. But can't see that happening. No.
Okay, Dave. So where can people find you, whether it be the book, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, anything like that? Where can people find your collection?
So it's I've created a Facebook page. I've mentioned it a few times, MFC Jumper Collection. Happy for anyone to go on and have a look. Ask any questions you want, except if they're for sale, because that a lot of them are not. In fact, most of them are not. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram. I find it hard enough to keep up with Facebook, but that seems to get me a few bites here and there of people saying, "Hey, have you seen this jumper on? Do you want to buy this one?" Quite often people come to you with retails, unfortunately, but every now and then someone will tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, have you thought about buying this one off me?" So the Facebook page is the one that I've established probably about 6 to 8 months ago now, and enjoy updating that when the new jumpers come in.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a good rush just chucking it up there and just seeing the reactions you get from anything that you've put up that you've got new. Yeah, it's a good feeling. Good feeling.
And look, every now and then, and Matt had his website in the last podcast, so I went straight on and had a look at that, and I've liked that. I want to have a look and see what other people are picking up in their own teams. So happy for you to like my page, even if you're not a Melbourne supporter, and if you come across any, let me know.
Absolutely. Well, we're sitting at around about 500 listeners now, so I'm sure there's some people out there that might be interested in Dave's jumper collection and may have some for him that he may not have or may just be interested in. So definitely hit him up on his page, or even just send us a message at our page if you can't get to his page or whatever the reason may be. But anyway, let's see if we can get Dave some more jumpers. And the missus just texted me and let me know that we got to leave in 10 minutes for basketball. So that's got to be the end of it today, Dave. But I really thank you for coming on today.
No worries, Aaron. It's been great and really been enjoying listening to all the podcasts and look forward to maybe not listening to my own, but listening to others that come on in the next few weeks.
I'm sure everyone's going to love it. It's a great stories and your collection sounds absolutely amazing. So thank you very much, mate.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Okay, so there we have it. Thank you very much, Dave. I think you'll all agree that was a fantastic insight into a Melbourne collector's collection. That was hard to spit out.
Bit of a mouthful there, mate.
Still got Josh with me. He's going to close the show with me. He wasn't with me on the interview as he was still coming down from his high from the Brisbane win. But he's going to join me for the close. And we're just going to do a little bit as we've done in the last few weeks. We're going to talk about the ins that I've got this week, which isn't too much. It'll be nice and quick. And just a few of the notables that I've seen on eBay again. Quickly cover what I got. This week I picked up a pair of Patrick Cripps match-worn boots.
Who?
Oh, just a bloke that's one of the favourites for the Brownlow medal this year.
Oh, okay.
Yes. It's an absolute...
Lockie Neal.
No. He knows how to tip me, this guy.
Chucky Milk.
No, you're right, though. I caught up with the Cripps family during the week, which is where I got the boots from, and he actually gave me 5 pairs of his shorts as well.
Oof.
And they were tipping that Nat Fyfe was going to win the Brownlow, but that Lockie Neal was going to be right on his heels. So that shows good confidence in their own family member that old mate Patrick wasn't a chance, according to the brother of old mate Paddy. So
Fair enough.
a bit of a sad state of affairs there, but he's playing it down. He's playing cliches. He's obviously going to be playing footy when he's a bit older, and he's an absolute beast of a kid. I think he's only 15, and this kid monsters anyone that I've actually met under the age of 21. So he's a big boy. So he'll be playing AFL football without any doubt soon. So might have to get hold of a few of his jumpers in the future. Yeah, so I picked up a pair of Paddy Cripps' boots from last season. He actually wore them all year. So they're a beautiful pair of boots, and if you've seen the page, you would have seen them on there. Also picked up a couple of Peel Thunder Indigenous jumpers from the NIDOC round from last season. If you've had a look at the page, you will see those. No, you won't, because I didn't put it on there.
Yeah, you did.
I didn't.
Huh.
And they were Mitch Crowden and Michael Johnson's. Jono actually had a cracker of a game that day. I put him on Instagram a couple of days ago, and Jono was quick to tell me that he hoped I didn't pay too much for him. So, yeah, I didn't. So, thank you, Jono. I'm glad you love the jumper. But, yeah, I didn't pay too much for it. And you guys had an absolute awful day that day. So, he did have a good one, though. So, I was pretty happy to pick it up still. They are a gorgeous-looking jumper. I have actually got it on my AFL Guernsey collection page. So, if you want to jump over there and have a look, you can see them on there. And I also have on the way the Cam Rayner 2018 Clash jumper, which I mentioned in the opening. So Josh is upset because he's not getting it. So, yeah, I'm happy to get that, and I'm stoked to get the pickups that I have on the way. Josh, you got anything on the way?
Nah. I've got one I bought off Rob. It was Nick Robertson one coming soon.
Old mate Robbie V from episode 2.
Yeah. I think it was about a month, and I was wondering if it was sent to you or whatever. And Rob goes, "Oh, it should be there by now, but I'll check the tracking number when I get to work." And then he found it in his car. Hadn't actually left for the post office yet. So yeah, that should be arriving very shortly. And then a Jonathan Brown patch signature card as well, which should actually be. That's been about a month since I bought it as
You've
well.
wanted one of those for a long time as well.
I have. So it's good to finally get my hands on it. I've just realised now it's been about 3 days off of a month since I bought that, and it's still on its way. So
that's interesting.
Hopefully it gets here soon.
Yeah, you might want to chase that up.
Yeah.
Not cheap cards, those.
No, not at all.
Also, we'll mention that the Fremantle Dockers are wearing their retro round jumpers today, and I know that probably won't mean a lot to some people. However, I have had quite a few of the listeners contact me and ask me if they're going to go on auction, because they're also interested themselves, because it is a tremendous looking jumper.
It was very nice.
Yes, it is going on auction. Stay the hell away is the tip I'll give you. But no, they are going on auction straight after the game this evening. So very, very excited to try and get my hands on a number of those.
Those are the big ones. What are you going for?
Obviously, if everyone stays away from Monday, I'll be very happy with that. I'll be very grateful because that's certainly one that I'll be going for. I do have my tax return set aside for that, which isn't small, so I am willing to spend a fair amount of money on it. So you won't win it, so stay away, please. Also, we'll be jumping on as many as I possibly can as well because they are a great-looking jumper, as I mentioned.
Big Sandies?
I will not be trying to get Big Sandies. I know there is another listener of ours by the name of Vita. She's a lovely lady and she's a great collector and also a big Sandlands fan, and she is going to be having a go at that. So
Ballas?
I'll do the right thing and I'll stay away from that for her. Ballas could be interesting. He could either go high, could go low. I honestly don't know. It's going to be a tough one because obviously being Sandlands the last game as well, that'll get a fair amount of the bid. Ballas being last game probably will go fairly high as well, but it's not going to be something like, other clubs will get their last game players. They'll go ridiculously in the thousands. I think he might be lucky to just scrape over $1,000, to be honest, which is quite a low amount.
Yeah.
Being retro jumpers, they are expected to get quite a higher number in comparison to what they are generally willing normally go for. So, yeah, it will be very interesting to see how they go, to be honest. I really am not too sure what to expect. So, hoping it's not too bad anyway, because I would love to pick up a few of them.
Just grab fifes.
Grab five. You know what? I never even thought about fifes. So, I'll keep an eye on it. But, yeah, it's interesting. I don't honestly know. I think Sandlands will go the highest.
Yeah,
and then I would say five.
So.
I'd say five will go second.
Yeah.
It's probably why I never thought about it, because it's just going to be out of my price range, I think. So yeah, no, it'll be very interesting to see how they go. It's something that they don't do all that often. That's wear a different design, and especially this old design that they wore back in the original days. They haven't worn that since 2010. So it will be interesting to see how it goes. And I know there are a lot of people who are very interested in getting those, not just in our listeners, but also all over the pages. So yeah, no, I think it'll be.
Hopefully they do the design proud and play like the Dockers of old.
Let's not hope that at all. So 2006 Freo maybe, I'll take that. But no, we got away from that jumper for a reason. So yeah, anyway, so moving on from that, just a few of the notables that I've seen on eBay this week. Not a lot, but I did notice a couple little things. There was a Carlton 1998 preseason. It was a number 10. And it was worn by Sean Charles, which the name doesn't ring a bell to a lot of you, I'm pretty sure. He did actually play for Melbourne, so Melbourne fans might remember who he was. Carlton fans may not remember because he only played one game for them. Also, St Kilda, he played 8 games in 2000. So it is a cracking looking jumper though. It has the white stripe directly down the middle, and it was worn during the 98 preseason. That one went for $750. So for a jumper that was worn by a player that played one game for that club, it's a pretty insane amount of money.
It's a lot of money.
Another one I've seen kicking around the place is a Daniel Chick 2006 away jumper. It's done the rounds, I think, quite a bit in the last few years. I believe it was match worn because I've seen photos of it elsewhere where people have seen that he's copped a rip on the shoulder. You could see that in a photo during the huddle. And this one has a patch where it was sewn up, which is crazy. You wouldn't think that they would bother these days. You would just move on, get rid of the jumper and move on to another one. But
yeah.
Looks like he actually ended up wearing that a few more games.
Far out.
They just sewed it up and there you go. Off you go, Daniel. I obviously didn't think a lot of him back then. Not enough to give him a few jumpers like they would have for Judd and Cousins, etc. That one went for $275, which is not too bad for 2006.
No, it's good.
There was a Charlie Dixon's 2019 Indigenous player issue, so he didn't play that day. It went for $400, which is it's a fair amount of money.
What was theirs like?
Yeah, I've only got the picture of the back of it.
Oh yeah, no, I remember it. Yeah.
So they wore that in the Indigenous round. They also wore it in Shanghai, but in Shanghai they had the Chinese flag on it as well. So this one was just the standard Indigenous round. And he didn't play that day, and it still went for $400, which is indicative of where Port Adelaide collectors are at when they pay $400 for an unworn jumper. Great looking design, though, I'll give you that. It's certainly very collectible. There was a 2011 Collingwood a alternative jumper, which I believe may have only been worn once in the year, possibly against North Melbourne. Please correct me if I'm wrong there. Where it had just the 2 stripes on either side of the larger black stripes. And I believe that was belonged to Simon Buckley. This is number 27. And that one went for $202. There was also a Joe Watson long sleeve trainer from 2009. Went for a bargain price of $80. Then we got a Jordan Lewis 2015. It was an away jumper. Went for $117. And we had a Jaron Geary Maddie jumper, which is the purple, white, and black stripe.
Yep.
So the Maddie Rewalt Foundation.
Yep.
That went for $249.
It's not bad.
Decent amount of money. Very collectible jumper.
Yeah.
And Geelong are absolutely flying at the moment, but their prices of their jumpers not so much. Mitch Duncan's 2018 with a COA signed went for $120, which is an absolute steal.
That is a steal.
And Lockie Henderson's went for $61. So if you're a Geelong fan, you'd be pretty happy with how the prices are going at the moment. Their auction ended for the Indigenous jumpers very recently, last couple of days as well. I was on Gary Ablett's Indigenous unworn player issue for a little bit too, because I thought, okay, it's unworn. I should be able to get it for a half decent price, around $300-$400 mark. I was very wrong.
I bet that went up, didn't it?
It went up very quickly towards the end, and it ended up selling for $1,100.
Oh.
Which, when you think about it, is absolutely insane, considering Isaac Heaney's 100th game match-worn and signed jumper is on Sydney's auctions at the moment for the same price. That ends next week, but it hasn't moved for a while, so it may not go any more than that. So, again, it all depends on the player and design and club of your jumper that you're looking at, what sort of prices you're going to be paying. If you're interested in an original Gary Ablett, his very first season jumper, that is available. It actually started on eBay at $10,000. It has come down numerous times in the last couple of months. It is now sitting at $3,000, which is a pretty good price. It's framed, signed, COA, all that.
Let's have a look.
It's a pretty good looking jumper. If you've got $3,000 spare and you can go and pick it up, then you're probably going to do pretty well, considering, yes, it is a jumper from his very first year.
Or you can just buy it now for $5,000.
Yeah, or just chuck a buy now bid on for $5,000. But I reckon you might be okay, and you might be able to sneak that one in for $3,000 if you're interested. Just a couple of little small ones to finish off with. I mentioned the 2006 Grand Final Sydney Swans retail jumper that was meant for the memorabilia frames. Ended up selling for $157. Probably a little bit higher than I would have expected. There was also a 1993 St Kilda Saints. It was a Gilbert McAdam jumper on eBay very recently, which I was very tempted to jump on, but I just couldn't quite photo match it enough to jump all over it, as the AFL logo was quite high on it. But it didn't last very long. It went for $165. So even still a 93 St Kilda Saints jumper, even if it wasn't match worn, it's still a great looking design and a half decent price to go along with it, to be honest. That's pretty much all we have for you today. It's nothing too spectacular on the eBay front. I'm sure there's going to be some great ones coming up, especially as we wind down to the end of the season. You'll start seeing a lot more of the end of season sales popping up. There'll probably be some auctions all over the club's pages, so make sure you definitely keep an eye out for that. We hope your team is up and about as far as finals goes, and we hope you continue to enjoy the show. Next week we've got another one lined up from Victoria, so please make sure you listen in, and we hope you have a great day. You enjoy your footy tonight. Hopefully Freo give me a win tonight, as we were just about to leave. As a matter of fact, the missus is going to be banging on the door any second. So I'm out of here. Josh, thank you very much again for joining me. I'm glad to have you back.
Thank you.
And we'll see you for the next episode of the Player Issue Podcast.